Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Industries Live. It is so good to be back with you again. It's my favorite time of the week. We're going to talk to some of our interesting partners this morning about some of the things they're seeing in their industry, their business, what they're up to. It's always a fascinating conversation, and I'm particularly looking forward to a couple of conversations we're going to have today. I'm joined firstly by Sanjay this morning. I'll introduce myself first, and then I'm going to get you to introduce yourself, Sanjay. So Michael Schmidt is my name. I look after industry partnerships here at AWS. I have the best job at AWS. Shh, don't tell anyone, because I get to work with lots of interesting partners and see what they're seeing in their industry every day. We work with partners on particularly line of business solutions and where partners are really seeing the action with their customers, what transformations they're seeing, whether it be AI, whether it be changes in their business, and what they're really hearing from their industries. So I'm based here in Seattle, Washington, where I think Christine said it's beautiful. It's not, well, it was beautiful. Hopefully the clouds are going to burn off, but it is that lovely time of the year in the Pacific Northwest where the sun comes out. Sanjay, how are you this morning? Tell me, where are you joining us from? And maybe you want to just quickly introduce yourself. Oh, I think we have an audio problem. Sanjay, I can't hear you. Do you want to just check your audio for 1 second? Sorry, or I'm just going to ask you, Sanjay, to check your audio. We're going to have LTM is our first partner going to be on this morning while Sanjay is checking his audio. I'm looking forward to having them on the show. We're going to talk about some really interesting topics and certainly what they're seeing in their business. While Sanjay's getting his audio sorted out, we might just put up the QR code. If you're interested to listen in on our show every week, every second week, every other Tuesday, Industries Live goes live to air, and where we introduce our customers and partners and talk what they're seeing in their industries and talk about their interesting stories. If you would like the reminders and get to know what's coming up and what shows are happening, scan the QR code on the screen right now and you'll get those email reminders. So why don't I'll just double check again with you, Sanjay. Is your audio working now? It is not. No audio. Okay, so we might just proceed. We might start introducing our partner, and while Sanjay figures out his audio, we'll kick off the show. So as I said before, one of the things that I love the most about Industries Live is that we really talk about not just technology, but what the implications and the applications of technology are, and particularly what our customers and partners are seeing every day in their business. So today we're going to introduce LTM, and I'm very excited that we're going to have Sriram on from LTM. Maybe why don't we bring Sriram on? Is that all right? Hey Sriram, how are you? Can you hear me, Sriram? Good morning, Sriram. Can you hear me? It seems like we've got audio on both ends of the broadcast this morning. Apologies, viewers. This sort of thing doesn't actually happen very often. Either Sriram or Sanjay, I can't hear either of them. In fact, I can hear you, Sriram. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me, Michael?
I can, Sanjay. Good morning. How are you? That's way better. How are you?
And I'm so sorry about it, but good day, everyone, and thank you very much for this. So sorry for, I'll just make it very quick. So my name is Sanjay Mahato. I'm based in Munich. I'm the Global Partner Development Specialist for Manufacturing in Michael's team, and it's wonderful to speak with one of our integrator partner today. And thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Hey Sriram, we can hear you. Can you hear us? I don't think Sriram can hear us, but we can hear him. Let's just give him a moment. Sanjay, while we're waiting for Sriram to get his audio turned up, perhaps Sanjay, do you want to? Whereabouts are you? Right, that's one thing I didn't ask. Whereabouts are you in the world right now?
Oh yeah, I'm based in Munich. It's sunny out here. It's a wonderful day, And I think couldn't be much more better because, just coming out of Hannover Messe and talking about what we heard in terms of industrial AI, we heard about physical AI. I think it's wonderful to really get an opportunity to really talk to our ecosystem of partners and really see what they have,
Hello.
how they're co-innovating with AWS.
Indeed, it was great to be able to be with you in Germany and be able to talk to so many customers and partners about what they're seeing in physical AI and just in manufacturing generally. It was a super exciting time, a lot of energy. What I love about it is it's a lot of big thinking. So you're seeing a lot of sort of interesting applications of what partners and customers are seeing in their industries and how they're taking the technology to market. Any particular highlights from your point of view, Sanjay, that you saw last week that you thought were really kind of thought-provoking?
Oh yeah, interesting. And I think the fact that you asked, I think if you really look at the way that we talk to, we are seeing manufacturers grade. I think that's really wonderful. I think what we also saw in a sense, if you really look at the way that the physical AI aspects of what we could do today with humanoids, with robots, and how they are really helping drive some of those use cases that we really see in terms of fleet management and some of that aspect. I think that is really, really crucial because that really pans out in terms of the world where we really talk about what it means from talking about, physical, humanoids out there to really then interface with the shop floor applications, and how that really the intermesh of all that data and how could we really make sense and drive business outcomes. That was really immense, the power of what we could see. We heard from quite many customers, especially if you look at what Siemens is doing in that area. I think that's quite interesting.
I agree. I certainly thought, there are a lot of humanoids, a lot of physical AI, so a lot of robots in all different forms, whether they've been manufacturing robots or there were robots walking the floor and stacking shelves and doing all sorts of interesting things. So I thought that was very interesting. The other thing that I thought was really interesting that I always take away from these things is some of the supply chain use cases that we're seeing for AI were very compelling as well. I was talking to one partner that was talking about a supply chain use case around football jerseys. I don't know whether you heard this one, Sanjay, but he was basically saying that football jerseys, if a player gets traded, the value of a football jersey goes down. So they were looking at an agentic solution to be able to look at the likelihood that a player is going to get traded and then potentially reduce stock levels and increase the discount to clear out the supply chain of that football player's jersey with that club. And then if they looked like they were going to re-sign, to then trigger supply chain actions to be able to refill the warehouses to be able to have the supply of those football jerseys when that player re-signs. And he said, the interesting thing is that when a player changes clubs, the value of that football jersey drops by like 75%. But he said, if we know that they're going to get traded, if it's highly likely, and we can make a agentic decision to say there is a likelihood of a trade in a month, we can reduce put in a 25% discount, even a 30-40% discount, and start clearing out the supply chain, and avoid that sort of 75% loss in the value of the product when the player gets traded. And I thought, what an interesting agentic use case around supply chain, a very simple one. But I think it really spoke to the power of what many of our customers and partners are doing with agents and how they were able to sort of build agent workflows that really solve interesting business problems. But I thought that was one of the coolest ones I saw when I was there.
Yeah.
Hey,
hey, Sriram, can you hear us?
Yes, finally I'm here.
Fantastic. So happy that we resolved our technical issues. It's so great to have you on, Sriram. Why don't we get on with it? Great to have LTM on the call. We have had you on once before, but it's fantastic to have you on again. Sriram, perhaps why don't you quickly introduce yourself, and perhaps for people who don't know LTM, you might just want to tell us a little bit about LTM.
Oh yeah, sure. So I'm Sriram Narasimhan. I lead the data and analytics practice for LTM. I've been in this space for about 30 plus years, and I've been at AWS reInvent for the last 5 years, and I've been speaker as well. So LTM is part of the larger L&T group, right? And based out of India. We're part of a 100-year-old heritage that we carry along, and predominantly in engineering, manufacturing, and construction. That's what this group is about.
Interesting. And I know that the organization has a very sort of unique heritage in engineering and manufacturing. And tell me, like, from your perspective, how does that shape the way you think about AI and transformation and going on that journey with your customers?
That's a very interesting place to start, Michael, right? So our engineering DNA gives a very, what I would say, a very practical lens to AI, right? For us, we have been in this industry before AI was a reality, and we spent decades in manufacturing environments where decisions had to be taken real time, right? The heritage pushes us to focus on context, which asset, process, plans, moment, and what action follows, right? Because in manufacturing, value does not come from smarter models alone. It comes from better decisions on the shop floor and execution. So for us, AI is what do we do on the shop floor? What do we do on the supply chain? That really matters. And so we look at AI very differently, right? And I would also say in some cases, we are a bit skeptical when you go to the shop floor to see if this really is going to work. So that skepticism is good, right? It helps us to make a more pragmatic rather than trying and testing it out.
It's interesting you should say that. I mean, Sanjay and I were just talking while you were coming on about, we were at Hanover Messe and talking to lots of our manufacturing customers and partners in the last couple of weeks about, their experiences and what they're seeing. One of the questions that we all get asked quite a lot is like, how do I get the business value from AI? Why is it so challenging? What are the sort of what's the secret sauce or the trick to being able to get the most sort of value and consistent business impact from AI? I'm interested, you spend a lot of time with clients, Sriram. What's your sort of take on that? What do you hear from your clients, and where are you hearing them getting the best value and business impact from their investments in AI?
So what we are seeing and what I'm seeing consistent value only happens when AI is embedded into the operating fabric, right? Engineering logic, process flows, set hierarchies, and decision ownership. Give you a quick example. We are working with this biggest logistics company, right, in Europe, and they're doing this work for the office of the CFO. Her concern was how can we reduce the DSO, right? Days is outstanding. And when we actually went deeper, we found out that her problem is linked to the supply chain and the way the shipments move, right? So it's just the linkage that we need to bring out. If I build a point solution only for the office of the CFO, that's not going to solve the problem. Just to summarize, right? I would say that the consistent value happens when AI is embedded into the entire operating fabric, right? To the complete process flows and asset hierarchies and decision ownership, not taking very siloed approach to AI, right? That's where I see a lot of value being happening.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
And that's,
I think that, sorry, Sanjay, just to finish that point, I think you're absolutely right, Sriram. And I think the key word that you said there is workflow. I think where you're most deeply embedded in the workflow and thinking about it as more of a workflow than a technology discussion, I think that's been the common thread that's come up to me, and I 100% agree with what you said there. Sorry, Sanjay, I'll throw that over to you.
Well, not at all, and it's a very interesting, I think, perspective that you provided, Sriram, because in manufacturing, it's very instinctive for us to talk about how do we collect more data, right? How do we really look at collecting more sensor data, MES data, historian data, quality data, you name it, right? And this is what is interesting is to what you said, that unless we are embedding AI in a sense to really contextualize what that means, it is more about just collecting the data, but how do we really make sense of that? So what is it that you're hearing from customers, to that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Sanjay, right? So what goes wrong in my view is that more data creates the illusion of progress, but not progress itself, right? That's a very profound thing, I would say, knowledge I gathered working with multiple clients. right? In many manufacturing programs, I see clients piling on sensor data, MES data, quality data, but the AI still struggles, right? Because it doesn't know what matters in that moment, right? I think it's the moment that matters. And at that moment, it's a very complex intersection of various workflows coming into play and the context as well, right? So what happens is that AI produces insights that are technically correct, but operationally unusable, right? So that's what I would say, right? So engineers and operators stop trusting it, and it never scales beyond pilots. So this is a paradox, right? As the data grows faster than context, signal to noise ratio actually gets worse, right? So you may want to look into the paradox more seriously and say that uh, do you want to have your data to grow much faster than the context, or can you enrich your context faster than your data? I would say that I would rather spend a lot of my time on enriching my context, even with lesser data, than trying to get more data and not have less context, right? That is how I look at it, Sanjay.
So in a sense, you're saying that, and I think this is an important paradigm to look at. So you're saying AI is smart, but in a sense, it is clueless without the context.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'll give you an
Yeah.
example again. So one of the shops work that we had done with AI, right? What was happening is that um, they were trying to make a lot of trial runs across multiple batches, and they were also trying to do the real production runs as well, right? Our AI systems was not knowing whether it was really a trial run, actually a production run, or actually a semi-production run. And it was giving the same answers irrespective of the type of run it's being made. And it was not aware that the scale at which the sensor data is coming in and from where the data is coming in, it should make a smart choice by itself, not somebody flagging it for the rules, right? So we have to make the AI be very I would say intuitive and context aware, and it can take the decision by itself rather than programming for it. So I agree to your point. In nutshell, right? What you say is correct. AI is very smart, but it's clueless without the context, and more so in manufacturing where the data is pretty complex, and the systems of record from which the data comes in are very diverse and very outdated as well. So it's important that now we focus on the context, Sanjay.
Oh, I think we might have lost Sanjay. Can
Sure,
you hear us?
and to be honest, to just in a sense apply AI on top of it, so it obviously becomes kind of the failure mode that we get into. So I mean, in a sense, if I
That's
understand your question, the way that you're trying to allude to is how do you help AI to move from being a prediction engine to being more
That was.
I'm not
I'll
sure. This is
just.
Sanjay.
I'll just interpret that for you, Sriram. So sorry, we're just having a little bit of a challenge with the audio. I think what Sanjay was saying is, so moving AI from more prediction engines into decision partners. Like, what are your thoughts around that? Is that sort of what you're alluding to?
Yes, I mean I'm
yeah.
I'm looking into decision. Even in decisioning, I don't want it to be very rule-based decisioning, right? Because in the past, you build models and you build rules. Even though you build AI systems, the way people build is more important as well. So what's happening is that you take the modelers and ask them to build AI systems. They embed rules into the AI systems, and AI still behaves based on the rules, right? So what is important for AI is to connect the dots, right? Connect the dots across the data, across the workflow and orchestration and the metadata for it to learn by itself. That's the most important point. So I will even stretch the word decisioning a bit more to say that smart decisioning or intuitive decisioning AI has to make. And that is why you should not make it very programmatic. You have to make it more evolutionary, if that makes sense, right? So I'll stretch the decisioning word a little bit more, Michael and Sanjay. Hope that makes sense.
I love that, Sriram. Tell me a little bit about, lots of your customers and lots of organizations have modern cloud platforms. They've got data lakes, they've got analytics, they've got lots of sophisticated advanced services that are driving their architectures, but yet scaling with AI is still challenging. Why is that the case? And what advice would you have for your customers who are saying, what's the secret sauce in being able to scale with AI? What are the key things that we need to be doing?
That's a great question. I don't think I have a very silver bullet or a secret sauce to answer it. I think it varies from context to context and client to client, because different clients are different on different stages of their AI journey and maturity. So I think it depends on that as well. But probably I will, in my experience, I'll summarize into three parts, right? One is decision ownership is a very important thing when it comes to AI, right? Models generate insights, but no one is accountable for turning them into action, especially when AI disagrees with human intuition, right? So I gave you the shop floor example in the past, right? So if that is a decision or an outcome that AI is giving, and the people in the shop floor disagree, who wants the decision in terms of go with AI or to go with human intuition? So I think structurally there should be a very clear decision ownership. That is very important, right? And third is second I would say is there's a behavioral change that we need to bring in the entire AI ecosystem and the operating ecosystem. We can't have AI separate and the human behavior separate. I would say there's a lot of change management and orientation towards AI that we have to give to the entire organization. It is not like a conventional systems rollout where people try to learn the system. Here, people have to live with the system, right? So I think learning to living is a big shift, and people should understand how machines think, right? Rather than machines telling what they have to do. I think that's a very second important shift. And third thing is that AI generally lives far from operations, and that is more important in manufacturing context as well. It is treated as a centralized data science initiative, not embedded into the plant workflows and engineering reviews. So what I would say is that make sure that your AI is very close to your operations. I would rather put it into the center of the operations, not away from the operations. I would rather have AI in the operations fail and then succeed, rather than building AI outside and try to integrate that into operations. That is the third thing I would say. So in summary, three parts: decision ownership, behavioral shift, integrating into operations, are the three, I would say, insights that I can summarize. But again, a lot of this changes with the degree of maturity of the organization as well.
Yeah, I think that dovetails nicely into what you said before about, firstly focusing on the workflow rather than just the tech stack, and thinking about it as an organizational workflow change rather than just, again, changing the technology. The other thing that I kind of talk a lot with partners about is it being a journey, not a destination, and thinking about, your AI journey is about building an AI. It's about having an AI direction and about building in stages. We often talk about the real power of agentic AI, particularly, is that it's composable. You can bring in other elements, other agents, other data sources over time. It's not that you need to start with a monolithic architecture. The composable nature of AI architectures, and particularly agentic architectures, I think is really a huge part of where the bench strength of that is. So yeah, 100%. I'm right there with you, Sriram. Maybe do you have a good customer example you might want to share with us, just where you've seen this really hit the road, maybe with one of your clients that's sort of getting it right? I think people would love to hear about that.
Yeah, I can. I can dive into a manufacturing plant itself to give an example. So this is mining and a manufacturing company, I would say far away from here in Australia, who I recently worked with. And they had a very conventional wisdom that what they mine and what they bring it to the ship, that they have the optimum usage of the mines, right? And the business was predetermined to say that my equipments are mining well, and my analytic models are working right, and I don't need to fine tune anything, right? So what we did is we embedded AI into the entire workflow, right? When I say embedded AI into the entire workflow, it is not just in the mining equipment; it's also from the workers' whatever you have mined out, you bring it to offshore as well. And with AI, we said that the three things that they can do better. One is that the yield ratio and tonnage ratio of the mine, what they mine, that can go up significantly if they tune their equipments, because we got the data from the IoT sensors and found out that tuning is possible. Second is that the mine safety can be improved if you allow the miners to take rest before they go back, because that impacts the performance of the overall mining process. And that once the mining is done and whatever they ship, right, I think that process can also be optimized by having the right location logistics as well. Now here, we did an AI study end to end. This was developed with the AWS. And what happened is, rather than just optimizing my mining equipment or the employee performance, we did a full process flow map. And we found points of intersection where AI can make a difference. And then we came up with an entire integrated view of how to solve for this problem. And this made a clear impact. And we changed the conventional wisdom of the business on their head, right? Originally, business used to say, I know my business better than you, right?
Yeah.
We ran a pilot, showed how we a big success factor for them. And the most important thing is they made a good PR out of how their employees are very safe in their mines, because it's mandatory, as you know, miners should take rest for about 3 to 4 hours because they drive a vehicle. And when we used AI and geofencing to find that as well, and we integrate this into the process. This is a great case study. It was done with AWS, and we were able to change the conventional wisdom of the business, right? And I would say converting a failure to success.
Nice. Sriram, great story. Thank you very much for the time. Again, apologies for the little couple of technical hiccups we had at the beginning of the show, but still a fantastic conversation. Really enjoyed having you on. We're already at the bottom of the hour. So on that note, thank you, Sriram. Thank you, Sanjay. We will look forward to seeing you next time. We have a second episode up for you in about 60 seconds. So thanks again, gentlemen. Have a wonderful day. And we will look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are back on Industries Live. It is Tuesday morning, my favorite time of the week. This is the second half of our episode this morning. I hope you were able to join in for the first half of our episode with LTM. But I'm very excited. We have TapeArk on this morning, and we're going to be introducing Guy in just a moment. But if you haven't joined us on Industries Live before, my name is Michael Schmidt. I look after industry partnerships here at AWS. Industries Live is our every second Tuesday morning. We sit with our exciting partners and we talk about what they're seeing in their industries. What are the key trends? What are the observations? You know, a lot of talk about AI, of course, at the moment, but you know, we talk about whatever they're seeing with their customers and partners and what they're doing to address those needs and move quickly innovate at rapid speed. So always, again, a fantastic conversation, and I'm really looking forward to this one. I am joining you from the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, downtown. I'm joined by my co-host, Christine. Good morning, Christine. How are things across the water? Maybe you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll bring in Guy after that.
Hey, good morning. So my name is Christine Rhodes. I am our partner segment lead for our oil and gas industry. So I'm really excited to be working with a variety of partners, creating go-to-market with them, and really helping drive the oil and gas industry, their transformation forward. So today's super exciting. I'm really excited to bring on TapeArk and Guy, because one of the biggest challenges within oil and gas, and I'm sure across multiple industries, is really getting the most out of our data. And that means all of our data, but we've been working for so long in the oil and gas industry. We have decades of data that's locked on tapes, sitting in, filing cabinets and caves. And so it'd be really valuable, as we're starting to move into AI, to give it all of the context of all of our data and get that subsurface data that's currently trapped in those legacy archives, get them off tape. So I'd love to bring on Guy Holmes, who's the founder and CEO of TapeArk, to discuss their groundbreaking work in mass tape to cloud migration.
Nice. Very excited to have you on board, Guy, and I'm going to get you to introduce yourself, but you also have to tell us whereabouts are you joining us from. It looks like it's dark outside, Guy.
It is dark outside. Great to be here. I'm calling in from the west coast of Australia, where the Indian Ocean and the Southern Ocean kiss down in the bottom southwest. And it's already tomorrow here. So nice, like it, love it. So if anybody wants tomorrow's lottery numbers, I can hook you up with those. Just put your name in the chat and I'll make sure that I toss it in there.
Very happy to have you dialing in from my home country, Guy, and I'm sure it's confusing all of our viewers that I'm here in Seattle with an Australian accent and you're over in Perth with a American accent, but we like to keep people on their toes. Have another swig of your coffee and you'll figure it out. Guy, do you just want to quickly tell a little bit about just the history of TapeArk? TapeArk may not be familiar to everyone who's viewing, but just where you've come from, and maybe you could just talk a little bit about the background of the company.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the founder of the company. We're about 7 or 8 years old now. I got an email from AWS 8 years ago, and it was the very reason I decided to start this company. So the email was talking about the fact that AWS storage had had its 60-second price decrease since it had started business. And I drew up a little chart and realized that the cost of online storage was decreasing dramatically compared to sticking things on a shelf. And it turns out that the offsite storage industry has had about a 65% increase in cost since it started. So we're seeing AWS drop into the 80 percentile, and we're seeing the offsite storage providers rise into the 60s. So I thought maybe there's an opportunity here to help companies liberate that content, save some money, get their data into a position where they can access all of it all the time. And this is the first time in the history of the energy industry that a company can have all of its data available to it all the time. And that makes a profound difference in the way that they can operate. So we started the company to liberate the largest collections of data on the planet, not just oil and gas, but anything from broadcast, pharmaceuticals, you name it. And since then, we've moved around 1.2 exabytes of content, so 1,200 petabytes. And we're pushing just a little over 2 petabytes a day into the cloud from tape collections all over the world.
Nice.
Yep. So Guy, I love hearing this story, because as a former data manager, this is always close to my heart, trying to get the data off of these tapes as they're decaying and you can't actually get to your data. So it's really exciting whenever we have a customer win. And so I understand that you have been working on a very big, very exciting projects to move some of this data off of tape. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that. And I think that customer is TGS. So for those of you who don't know in the industry, this is one of of the biggest seismic data suppliers in oil and gas. So super, super happy to hear about this story from you, Guy.
Yeah, awesome. Together with AWS, we joined up with TGS to liberate 40 petabytes of offshore oil and gas exploration data, also known as subsurface data. TGS is one of the largest, if not the largest company that has boats out in the ocean exploring for oil. And today, their boats are recording data to tape still. And those tapes are flown off the boat and sent back to shore. And then people process that data from the tapes, and it takes weeks just to read the tapes back because it's might be multi-petabytes of tapes. They have to have dozens of drives to be able to read that into a timely fashion, and then a whole bunch of disk space to be able to process it. So TGS's view, in conjunction with them building their own foundation model, which for me is like super exciting because it's one of the first ones out there to start to look at seismic data like an LLM, except not text as binary. So I'm super excited to see what happens with that. They shipped us a large number of tapes from Europe and the United States. And over the period of about 6 months, we've ingested the 40 petabytes into AWS. In the process of doing that, we ran a bunch of metadata scraping technologies to be able to pull off key components of that data to help build databases for them so that they can find data very quickly. And they've gone from really doing work where it would take weeks to months to get to their data now to pretty much instantaneous access. And because they sell this data, they can also almost immediately share it with a customer who can then monetize it quickly. And it's really brought their whole processing chain down to a very, very quick point and click type of environment. So it's pretty cool. And we're excited to be just on the last 2 petabytes of it right now.
Wow, that's an enormous amount of data. I guess for people who may not be familiar with tape migrations, like what are some of the, sort of super unique aspects to these sorts of size of migrations and specifically around tape migrations? I mean, one of the things you pointed about before is just the amount of time that it takes to kind of analyze these tapes and probably get them ready for migration. But yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about that perhaps?
Yeah, sure. I brought a couple of props with me.
Oh yes, we love props. There we go.
Yes.
Look at that.
This tape here is something, I was talking to an oil company yesterday in Malaysia. They have 35,000 of these. And I quickly did the math. Currently these 35,000 tapes in offsite storage are costing around 40 cents a tape a month. So it's a $15,000 exercise per month to store these. All of the data taken off of these tapes and put into AWS is about $98. So the sheer footprint of it is more about the number of tapes than it is about the data volume. Whereas with AWS, you pay for what you use, as opposed to, even if this tape was empty, I'd still be paying for it, on the shelf. So there are so many challenges with this work. There are a good 100 different media types, from one of these to one of these to a whole range of them to optical. And oil companies have used them since the 60s right through to present day. And they've continually upgraded their technology. So no oil company just has one type of tape in their collection. They often have 30, 40 different types of tape recorded over different vintages from equipment that doesn't exist anymore. And hence they end up leaving them on the shelf because they're not really sure how to break the cycle. And what we built was a mass ingest platform that can parallelize hundreds or thousands of tape drives simultaneously running and streaming into AWS, using some IoT on the AWS platform to control all of that equipment from Australia. So so it's a very strange business that we're in, but it's producing really awesome results for a whole range of customers right across the spectrum.
our showrunner Jason just said to me, "Is that an 8-track?" Yeah, that looks like something familiar from my father's garage. So that's an absolute classic. Tell me, just in follow up to that, before we get to the next question, I can imagine they're in various states of decay and usability. Just quite, you've got, as you said, since the 60s, some of these organizations have been recording petabytes of data on these tapes. That must be a challenge in itself as well, as being able to kind of sort the good from the bad, I guess, and get good quality data off what is often a physical media that is obviously decays over time.
Yeah, 100%. There's sort of three pillars of problems that support the big problem. The first one is the media type. So there can be up to 100 different media types, from the round tape that I showed you down to a little square one. The second thing is whether or not the tape's been degrading or not. There's a condition known in the industry as stiction, where the tape absorbs moisture from the atmosphere and it swells. And then when it swells, it starts to stick to itself and turns into almost like a roll of sticky tape to be able to, tape things together. And then the third pillar is that data was written to that tape in a format that nobody uses anymore. So you have this 3-layer problem of an old tape that's degrading in an old format, but the data, this particular tape I showed, this is from Papua New Guinea. You could not go record this again without spending millions of dollars. And it is going to be stiction affected, and it requires, a delicate sort of hand and understanding on how to treat these properly. I've got one last one here. This is actually from the NASA moon landings. This is from 1969, New Year's Eve.
Look at that thing.
And interestingly, it is in beautiful shape, perfectly readable.
It looks good. It looks pristine.
Yeah, the brand of tape tends to be the thing that dictates whether it's going to be a good or bad tape, and this happens to be a good tape. So this is from the NASA Manned Space Center. Anyway, lots of challenges. Not to mention then just the sheer scale of it. We know of oil companies that have over 10 million tapes in storage that they don't really know how to move forward with. So scalable problem with a lot of complexity, but we've ironed out most of that.
My own story, because I remember sitting in my colleague's office, many years ago, trolling through eBay, trying to find tape readers so we could read that tape just one last time before it absolutely disintegrated. But it would be cannibalizing one tape reader to feed another. But exactly. Moving on. So Guy, hey, you had mentioned your unique position with AWS, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about ArcBridge, your ArcBridge platform that leverages AWS services, and really what makes this a powerful partnership for our energy companies.
Yeah, sure. So we're really the only company in the world that does this at scale, and we built our platform on AWS. So it seems strange to think of all these tape drives running in a data center in Dallas, but they're actually all controlled out of an AWS account where we've orchestrated IoT calls to all the devices. We constantly probe them to say, are you done with that tape yet? If not, tell me when you're done. When you're done, let me know. When it's finished, we've got some robots that automatically change those tapes and put the next one in. And then that's how we get the scale, is that we've combined robotics with IoT calls. And then as the data streams into the platform, we then have a set of Lambda functions that will identify the data type, pull out the key attributes, put those into a Dynamo database so that you get a really scalable multi-billion row database with everything you'd want to know about your assets. And I think what fundamentally is different now than it was 10 years ago is that seismic ingestion and reading and processing was a linear type of problem. People would do tape 1 followed by tape 2 followed by tape 3. And they did that because the data was typically going to another tape and they wanted the data to be in order on the next tape. With the cloud, you can read tape 1, tape 100, tape 50, tape 42 in any order you like. And of course, it's just basically disk. So all of them can be sorted and rearranged whenever you like. And you can also then throw mass scale processing at it to derive all the metadata. and it's totally changed the game in terms of how this business and industry works.
I'm super excited to. We're going to get to the second half. Sorry, Christine. I just didn't mean to talk over the top of you. We're going to get to the second half of the conversation in a minute, which I'm super excited to hear the forward-looking version. But just quickly on the, I know you've been able to make an enormous amount of value out of the MAP program, and just to help you from a migration point of view, it's obviously very front and center for your business. Maybe you just wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about that and what you've been able to leverage in terms of the MAP program for your business.
Yeah, sure. As a relatively mature AWS partner, we've achieved a certain competency and skills that we've proven to AWS. We know what we're doing. Part of that has resulted in the fact that they've awarded us with the ability to use the Migration Acceleration Program, MAP. And MAP provides a range of things. One of the things is funding. But in the main, it helps you reduce the risk of a project by assessing the problem in a lot more detail than most people normally would, because you take a bit of time out, you throw a little bit of money at it to make sure that you understand the problem really well. And then that in turn improves the outcome because you've de-risked it, you understood what you were trying to achieve. And that means then the whole thing accelerates to value faster because you're not going back and fixing things that weren't quite right when you started. And then it also then trickles on that you get this architecture that has a much longer term view than it would if you just kind of did a dump of data and ran, and people were then trying to figure out how to use it. So, and then the last kind of thing on top of that is that you get the security that comes with the AWS platform that in a conventional tape vault, it's Fred, the courier guy, carrying your tapes. He might drop one, he might drop them off at the wrong office. With AWS security, it's obviously almost impenetrable. So lots of upside for MAP, and for us, it allows us to sometimes offer discounts to customers. But generally, it just helps us scope the job, mobilize. So we've done remote jobs in other countries where we've taken equipment, and then also to migrate it at speed.
Fantastic. The first half of this conversation is just fascinating because the sort of challenges that you're working with your customers are so unique and interesting. And again, the props are absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Guy, for bringing those on. I want to pivot now and we'll talk about more the forward-looking. We talk a lot about the real power of AI bringing together diverse data sources, and I think about how AI has brought together my Slack and my email, but that's kind of on a minute scale compared to the value that you're bringing your customers. Let's talk about the forward-looking. Like when you're talking about, what's the value that some of your customers are seeing now that they're able to integrate all of this data into a single place and be able to use it, to monetize it, to be able to bring value from it, from their business? Like, tell me a little bit about
that. Firstly, time to insight. Oil companies, when they're exploring, often have a fixed time period that they're able to look for oil, drill for oil, make a discovery, and then go into production. And if they don't achieve those milestones, they have to usually vacate the area and hand it over to another oil company. So taking something that cuts 6 months off of one of their projects is a substantial gain for them. It gives them more time to think about the prospect and analyze the data and look at it in different ways. So one of the things is the immediate accessibility of the content, which previously could take weeks or months. The Gen AI applications that can run on this data now. So I mentioned earlier, this is the first time in history an oil company can have all of its data in one place, all accessible all the time. This has never happened before in the world. They always had their data on tape unless they needed to use a piece of it. Now, with the oil price fluctuating, they can look at a prospect that was maybe not economical 5 years ago, again, very quickly, and go, hey, let's go back to that spot and get some production going out of there. Or they can sell the asset faster because they can provide the data to the buyer. They can enter joint ventures faster. So there's a whole range of benefits that the companies see. Gen AI is one of them, obviously. Reevaluation, predictive maintenance on things, because some of this data is live field data that's constantly changing, and it gives them an idea of what the field is doing at the time. And a couple of big things is do I actually own this data now? Did I sell those assets but forgot to give the customer the tapes that bought it? And that creates legal issues. So understanding ownership is a key aspect of, which is you can kind of only do when you liberate the content into a platform where you can see what it looks like and read the headers and understand who the copyright actually has in it. And then the last thing is there is often when companies explore for oil, 4 or 5 of them will explore together in a group, and they will all get a copy of the data, of exactly the same data. And once they're all in AWS, you can run deduplication across it and have one source of truth and remove the other 80% of the data that isn't needed by all the parties, which can be a huge cost savings for all the parties involved, as opposed to everyone keeping their own copy and running up their own costs, kind of managing it.
It must be a huge business impact. Your customers must be saying to you that they're, you said time to decision, but also time to value, and like there must be a huge business impact to that.
Yeah, and to be honest, they're still new at discovering what that impact is. They don't realize the economics that have changed around data storage, and they're usually focused on the next drill hole that they're going to drill. And this is giving them an opportunity to look at prospects. So they've already done all the work. They just need to go back and run something across it. A new tool that was developed yesterday can be deployed on data straight away. You don't have to go and license it and wait for 5 months to get through procurement. You can get it on AWS Marketplace, run it out, process some data, make a new discovery. So it's super exciting for me. I get out of bed like super excited about every job because there's so much opportunity in it.
Guy, I think you really started to touch on it here, but I'm just so excited to have this conversation with you because I think we are at that inflection point where we're hearing from our customers about how do I accelerate that time to value? And really it's all about the data, right? And giving your AI the most, the models, the richest and most complex historical context that they can really start integrating across all of their decision making. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what are you hearing from the field? What are you hearing from companies? I remember it was so hard to get folks to actually take on a tape migration project because they would rather, use that capital to drill a new well. But I feel like that is shifting now, and I'm wondering if you could talk to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that have changed. Partially, the economics play a role. I showed you that one square tape early on in the show, and I did the math. You can get 1,200 years of storage on AWS for the same price as 1 year of offsite storage for that tape. So wow. Previously, they used to copy one tape to another, and then they would store that for 10 years, and then they would copy that tape to another one, and just to get it onto some new media. This finally brings an end to all of that. It's future-proof, 11 nines of durability. It's ready to roll whenever you need it. You never have to do another migration to another tape. So firstly, the economics, they're starting to see this as a real opportunity to potentially save money as opposed for it to be a cost center. Secondly, we also do this service as a SaaS. So you don't have to pay some giant lump sum to do 4 million tapes. You can pay for that just like you're paying for offsite storage, except you pay us over a multi-year period and we do the job in the background for you. So you don't have to sit around and wait for that one big thing to pop up before you actually kick into gear. Obviously AI is playing a key part. Nobody wants to be left behind, particularly the energy industry. They're slow to move, but they are starting to wake up to it.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's fascinating, Guy. I'm really interested just in terms of forward-looking advice that you've got for customers who are sort of facing this challenge. There are, I'm sure, lots of organizations that are out there sitting on decades of tape archives that are stashed, as you said, neatly away in a cupboard that they're kind of looking at. They've been in the habit of moving it over to new media every few years to preserve the data. But like, what would be what are the sort of chestnuts of advice that you have for those organizations in terms of how to look at that and how to start, what to get started with?
Yeah. Firstly, thinking about what a lot of companies do is they want to pivot to backup directly to AWS without tape involved, but they've been using tape for 10 years and they need access to those tapes, but they want to back up to the cloud. So they end up keeping all the on-prem infrastructure for doing restores for the previous 10 years. And then they do the restores for the future out of the cloud, which means they're paying a whole bunch of money for dead hardware, software licenses, data center footprint to maintain a legacy system just in case they need to do a restore. So make sure that you take the holistic cost in view. It's not just how much do I pay in tape storage at an offsite storage facility. It's what equipment am I maintaining? What software licenses do I have? It's a whole array of things. So firstly, take all of that into account. All we need to know to kind of map out your journey from a TapeArk perspective is how many tapes do you have? What kind are they? And do you have encryption turned on or off? And if you had encryption on them, do you have the keys? Other than that, we've pretty much got the bases covered. As part of maps as well, there's an assess phase which AWS offers to customers that would allow us to potentially offset some costs of doing an initial audit to understand your problem and how much it'll cost to move it. So I'd say contact us for an audit, supply us with the basic details that you can find about your collection, and then let us have it. It's pretty much a white glove end-to-end service, so there's not a lot of involvement from the customer.
Nice. We just thought we'd put up some next steps in terms of how to modernize and how to work with TapeArk. So super helpful, Guy, and I'm sure you've been through this journey multiple times with lots of customers. So your insights as to where the best place to start is super helpful. Guy, really thoroughly appreciate you having you on the show today. Thank you. This was a riveting conversation. It's fascinating. The scale is just absolutely fascinating and compelling. And I thoroughly appreciate the props. The props are always good. Show us those tapes one more time. I think we need one more look at both of them. Have you got them handy?
Here comes NASA. Here we go.
There we go. That is a beauty. Yeah. Thank you so much, Guy. We really appreciate having you on. It was a fantastic conversation. For those of you who are interested in joining us again, perhaps we could put the QR code up. If you would like to hear more about up-and-coming episodes of Industries Live, subscribe with the QR code and on the screen, and you'll be in the loop as far as our next episode. Every second Tuesday, we're live with Industries Live, where we talk to interesting customers and partners, just like Guy. Christine, thank you so much. Guy, thank you so much. Enjoyed the conversation, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on Industries Live. Have a great day.
Have a good one. See you guys.
Bye-bye.